Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you something. Have you ever promised yourself to avoid that slice of cake, only to eat it 10 minutes later? Or maybe you've tried to wake up early, work out, save money, eat healthier, but somehow your willpower just gives in. You're not alone, and more importantly, you're not broken. Today I want to share with you something fascinating, how self-discipline actually works, not just in theory, but inside your brain. Now, we all talk about willpower and impulsiveness like they're magical traits, but neuroscientists are discovering that these are not vague personality quirks. They are built into the very wiring of our brains. The human brain has about 100 billion neurons, about as many as there are stars in the Milky Way. These tiny cells create the circuits behind everything we think, feel, and do. Here's the good news. Self-control isn't just something you have or don't have. It's something your brain can learn. Just like lifting weights makes your muscles stronger, practicing discipline strengthens certain areas of your brain. In one study, researchers Todd Hare and Colin Camera put people in MRI machines and asked them to make decisions between a small reward now or a larger reward later. Classic temptation, right? Guess what lit up in their brains? The prefrontal cortex, especially the ventral medial and dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. Areas responsible for decision making and self-control. The more active those regions were, the more likely people were to make the smarter long-term choice. And here's why that matters, because of something called neuroplasticity. Your brain is not fixed. It grows and rewires based on how you use it. Think of self-control like a mental path through the woods. The more you walk that path, the clearer and easier it becomes. That's why the phrase exercise your self-control is more than just a metaphor, it's real. Every time you resist the donut or hit the gym instead of the couch, you're strengthening your brain's discipline pathways. Of course, some people do have a head start. You've probably heard of the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment. Kids who could wait for 2 marshmallows instead of eating one immediately were tracked into adulthood. They turned out to have better outcomes across the board: career success, health, happiness. Years later, brain scans showed those kids, now adults, had stronger prefrontal activity and healthier brain patterns linked to impulse control. But here's what's most exciting. Even if you weren't one of those kids, you're not stuck, because discipline isn't set in stone. It can grow. Yes, genetics play a role, but think of it like this. We're all born with different sizes of rubber bands. Some stretch more easily than others. But your environment, your habits, your surroundings, your choices can help you stretch what you've got. Even if your brain isn't naturally wired for discipline, you can train it. Just like running strengthens your legs, using self-control strengthens the circuits in your brain that help you focus, delay gratification, and make better decisions. So if you've struggled with sticking to routines, breaking bad habits, or reaching your goals, don't give up. It's not too late. It's never too late. Discipline isn't a fixed trait. It's a skill, and skills can be learned. And one last thing, if you're raising kids, this matters even more. Always giving in to a child's every desire might feel kind, but it can actually stunt the parts of the brain responsible for self-control. That's not just a parenting tip. It's a brain development issue. In the end, self-discipline is not about being perfect or punishing yourself. It's about building the kind of brain and the kind of life that serves your future, not just your impulses. So let's train our brains one smart choice at a time. Focus is one of the main pillars of self-discipline. A person who lacks the ability to focus is almost certainly one who will also lack discipline. Focus itself is dependent on something that neuroscientists call executive function. The three executive functions we are most concerned with when it comes to being disciplined are working memory, impulse control, and cognitive flexibility and adaptability. You can see why they are aptly named the executive functions. They institute the brain's management system. Through the executive functions, you are able to set and pursue goals, prioritize activities, filter distractions, and control unhelpful impulses. Together, these three functions have been shown to take place in several brain regions, including the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and the orbitofrontal cortex, in addition to the supplementary motor area and the cingulate motor zones. Just as the exercise of self-discipline in the face of conflicting choices is associated with particular brain regions, the executive functions links with specific brain structures means that you can target and improve them specifically. In order to improve and refresh discipline, it's clearly desirable to have more blood flow to those regions of the brain that are responsible for executive functions. One of the techniques which may help do this is meditation. For many years, meditation has been touted as a panacea for all sorts of problems, including a lack of focus and discipline. Somewhat surprisingly to the skeptics out there, studies have confirmed that the practice of meditation does indeed have a real effect on the brain. MRI scans of volunteers before and after they participated in an 8-week mindfulness course depict results which make a strong case for meditation being a useful tool for strengthening the areas of the brain that are responsible for executive functions, and thus for improving self-discipline. Moreover, meditation was shown to impact the amygdala, which is generally responsible for the primal emotions, instincts, and drives that keep us alive. It is also the center of the fight or flight instinct, which heightens our arousal, for better or worse, in the face of a perceived threat. It's the body's alarm system. Meditation is associated with the shrinking of the amygdala, which means that participants who meditated tend to be less susceptible to fear, strong emotional impulses, and stress. Self-discipline is often sabotaged by emotional impulses and stress, so keeping these under control is helpful to setting the conditions for strong willpower. On top of that, the scans showed that the gray matter in the prefrontal cortex had become noticeably denser with meditation. What's more, the gray matter growth wasn't isolated to just the prefrontal cortex. The brain structure located behind the frontal lobe, the anterior cingulate cortex, also became denser with meditation practice. This brain area has been associated with functions having to do with self-regulation, such as monitoring attention conflicts and allowing for greater cognitive flexibility. In other words, meditation can both reduce the feelings and emotions that make us lose self-control and increase our ability to manage those feelings by physically affecting the brain structures responsible for them. If meditation isn't already a part of your daily routine, consider adding it in. It's common to hear people say that they don't have time for meditation, possibly even seeing this as scheduling a time to be unproductive. But if meditating for a few minutes a day can make you better at carrying out executive functions, the increased focus and discipline while you are active will more than make up for the pause offered by meditation. Being disciplined in your pursuit of long-term goals is only possible if you can consistently focus on the decisions and actions that lead to accomplishing those goals. Thus, it's nearly impossible to achieve focus and self-discipline separately, as each is intertwined with the other.